Hi, I'm Les Moreland. I'm the current commander, AMVETS Post 2006 here in Leesburg, Florida. And we're a proud sponsor of Central Florida Salute on the YouTube channel. I'd like to have you check us out on our Facebook page or whatever. Our address is 500 North Canal Street in Leesburg, Florida. To all you veterans out there, come by and see us. We salute you for your service and thank you very much.
I'm your host, Bob Peters, and with me is a World War II Jim Hagen, who I just met, and he showed me some pictures you have, and you've had quite the life, quite the experience. Welcome to the show, Jim.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born?
I was born in Rochester, New York in 1925. I'm now currently 98 years old. And I went into the service when I was 18 years old. And it was quite an experience because in those days everything was all muddled up. The whole world was at war. It was more so than in World War I. But I went into the Pacific Theater of Operations.
We'll get to that, Jim.
Okay.
Let me ask you a simple question. Where were you when how old were you when Pearl Harbor got hit?
Pearl Harbor?
You remember that? I'm
yes,
sure you do.
I remember very vividly.
Yeah.
Because Pearl Harbor happened at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 8 o'clock Pearl Harbor time in the morning, but 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Rochester. And I was driving around with my girlfriend. And I went to pick up my father at work, and he told me that they had bombed Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. So you were 18 when that happened. So you enlisted or you got drafted?
I was enlisted.
You enlisted? A lot of men enlisted back then. Yeah.
But not right away. I had to finish high school. I was in high school yet.
Yeah, a lot of guys didn't finish high school, and then years later they got their high school diplomas.
Yeah.
So you went in from Rochester. Where did you go for basic and all that? How long did you have training?
Well, I took basic flight training in Tennessee somewhere. I don't remember when or where. But then I went to Fort Myers, Florida for final advanced training on a P-39. And that's when I knew I was going to the Pacific. There was no P-39s in Europe. It was a very unique fighter for the time.
You not only flew the P-29, you flew others too, right?
Yeah, I flew the medium bomber B-25, built by, I think it was North American built it. But the P-39 was a very unique flyer. The engine was back of the pilot, which changed the whole flight attitude because rather than getting into a nosedive, you get into a flat swing of things. So it was a different airplane. It had a cannon. The Russians loved it.
Yeah.
Because they could get ground support with the P-39 and it was a tank killer with a cannon. The ammunition was stored up in front for the cannon.
And the engine was in the rear, behind the
engine
pilot?
was back of the pilot.
Wow.
The drive shaft for the propeller ran through your legs.
That had to be something else.
And then the gearbox was right back of the instrument panel.
Wow. I've never seen one of those. That sounds interesting.
There's 3 left.
There's 3 left?
There's 3, I think it's in some museum, but there's 3 planes left out of 5,000.
Yeah.
Oh, they built more than that because they gave the Russians 5,000.
But it had a cannon on it too.
Yeah.
Wow, that'd be something. So you went to flight school, and then they sent you right over after that, or you stayed stateside at all?
It was a few months. I went over in the spring of 1944, from Fort Myers to San Francisco on the train, and then we went by boat from San Francisco to Milne Bay, New Guinea. New Guinea is the second largest island in the world. They still had cannibals when I was there.
Cannibals?
They had 5 wives, and they spoke Pigman.
Why would anybody want 5 wives?
Well, they were
That's
scary.
kidding. That's kidding, buddy.
They were fuzzy wuzzies. They had great big fuzzy hair.
Yeah.
And they spoke what they call Pigman English. So you would say, E Pella Mary, E got 2 Marys. E got 5 Mary. Mary was woman. Pella was man.
Oh.
That was Pidgin English, and that's what the natives spoke.
Oh, okay.
And I went,
you had a good memory, remember all that, huh?
You
had a great memory. So you were there, how long were you there?
Well, we went up the coast of New Guinea. First, Milne Bay was right at the bottom of New Guinea. And the next one up was Buna. There was a big battle there in 1942 at Buna, New Guinea. Our 32nd Division and the Australian 7th Division fought the Japanese. Then the next one up was Lae, L-A-E, Lae, New Guinea. And then Finschhafen, New Guinea. And then Atapi, New Guinea. And then from Atapi, on September the 15th, 1944, we left and invaded. In those days, that was not Indonesia, it was Dutch East Indies.
Yeah, right.
And the Morotai was in the Dutch East Indies, just east of Borneo. So we landed there September the 15th. And we built 2 strips, one for fighters and one for bombers. And then that neutralized New Guinea. I mean, not New Guinea, but the Dutch East Indies were the Japanese. The Japanese fleet was in Borneo. They kept the fleet out of Japan because if they had the fleet in the north, then the tankers, our submarines would sink the tankers. So they kept the fleet down by Singapore and so forth. And then from there we left on Christmas Eve to invade the Philippines, Luzon. They invaded Lae in the Philippines in the fall of 1944, and then we, on January 9th, landed in Lingayen Gulf in the Philippines, Luzon. And I went up on a destroyer to meet with the Philippine guerrillas to seize a fighter strip just a little bit south of the landing place where we were landing in the Philippines. And we landed there January the 9th. And MacArthur made a big mistake. He immediately landed in the Lingayen Gulf. That's where the Japanese landed in 1941, the Lingayen Gulf. But he turned south and headed towards Manila. He should have gone right straight across and cut off the Japanese from advancing into the north into the mountains around Baguio.
Yeah. He didn't listen to you, huh?
Didn't listen to me.
No. So all this time you're flying the fighter, right?
Yeah.
How many? Do you have any idea how many missions you did with this plane?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? But
No, I had
what was your primary function? To go after ships or go after?
go after ships, shipping, and airfields. There weren't many targets, because it was all jungle.
Yeah.
There weren't many strategic targets like Europe, that had big cities.
Yeah.
There weren't anything like that. And what was I going to say? But, but we didn't, the U.S. pilots hated the P-39 because it didn't have a supercharger.
Yeah, I don't think it would fly very fast with a cannon on it, you know?
Well, they had a hard time meeting the speed objective,
Yeah.
which was 425 miles an hour. I think about what the maximum they could get was, I think, 375 or 390, but
Yeah, so you
normal cruise speed was 250.
Yeah,
Well,
so
the
you
rate
could
of
be
climb was
you could be
lousy.
a target easier for the enemy planes because you couldn't keep up, right?
Yeah, well, the rate of climb was not good either.
Yeah.
And it was made for it to be an interceptor. You have to realize during the 30s, they didn't think that a fighter could keep up with a bomber. So they made the bomber very defensible, the flying fortress.
Yeah, B-17.
B-17, they had guns all over the place.
Yeah.
The E had the tail gunner, belly gunner, the forward gunner, and the top gunner. So they had a lot of guns on those.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of flying in one of those.
Oh, you did?
Obviously not during World War II, but yeah, in fact, on our YouTube show, there's two episodes. One where I did a documentary on the B-17, and another one where I did with my good friend James Floyd from the radio station. He and his father and I and Sue, my videographer, and some other people. In fact, there was a World War II flying ace with us there that day. But anyway, let's get back to you. So, did you get into like flying? The planes come after you. You get into dogfights at all, or no?
Well, I'm trying to think. We didn't. The American pilots didn't like the P-39 because of the slow rate of climb.
Yeah.
And something else, I forget what it was. But anyway, we wound up giving all the B-39s to the Russians, all of them.
Wow.
And
That's probably why I never heard of
Of course,
them.
we had the P-38, which was a great fighter. But the P-30, the Japanese zero weight was a very light plane. Had big control surfaces, very maneuverable. So you never turn inside of a zero. And then we had the Warhawk, the P-40. We had the P-40 and the P-38, which was a twin-engine fighter with counter-revolutionary props. One spun one direction, one spun another, so you didn't get any ground loops. Or the P-47, the Jug. Do you remember that?
No, sir, I don't know that one. I don't know that one.
Republic built that. Bell Aircraft in Buffalo, New York built the P-39.
I was near where Sikorsky was.
Yeah.
Sikorsky did a lot with World War II. Yeah. So how many different types of airplanes were you checked out on? You said
Just the B-25 and the P-39.
Okay.
Just those two.
So the B-25, how many missions can you remember how many missions you did with that or no? What basically was your, that's a bomber, right?
Medium bomber. What they did with the B-25, they sent them all to Townsville, Australia, which was 300 miles north of Brisbane. And they modified them to strafers. They put 14 machine guns in the nose.
Wow.
And what we would do is go over the Japanese airfields, 3 B-25s abreast and strafe them. And the strafing did so much damage. It was just terrible. So that's what wound up, because there was no targets for B-25, and it was a medium bomber, carried 3,000 pounds of bombs.
How many on the crew?
Well,
How many crew members on the B-25?
I think there were 7.
7?
There was a pilot, co-pilot, navigator, and bombardier combination. And then there was a top gunner and a nose gunner, and I think the belly gunner.
Yeah, wow. So what rank did you achieve?
Captain.
You were a captain? I'll call you captain from now on. I don't want to get in trouble. I'll call you captain.
Yeah, the group leader had 4 squadrons. My squadron was the 35th. And the 49th was P-38s. In my fighter group, the 8th Fighter Group, which dates back to World War I. It's an old fighter group, the 8th.
I was
And
in the 8th Air Force.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was a group.
Oh, it's
not
a group.
force.
Okay.
But at the end of the war, there were 5 air forces fighting Japan.
Mm-hmm.
The 5th, which was, and then the 7th and 8th, the 20th, and there was one more I can't remember. But there were 5 air forces fighting Japan.
Yeah.
Well, then at the end of the war, I was in Luzon. We were staging for the invasion of Japan. We were going to invade Kyushu, which is a secondary island. Honshu is the main island.
Mm-hmm.
Kyushu is the second one. We were going to invade it on October 31st with 4 divisions. And we were staging in Hagen, Gulf. We were going to move up to, there's an island outside of Okinawa. The battle was winding up in Okinawa in the spring of '45. And when Japan sued for surrender, and we went up to Tokyo Bay, and we were in the bay when the Japanese signed the surrender terms. I was in the
Missouri.
Bay.
You were there?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think I was on the, out on the APA, which is an armed transport ship. And they wanted to get as many Americans in the area as possible so that when they signed the terms, we could land. So I went in as soon as they cleared the mines out of the bay. I went into Japan on, I think it was the first week in September, into Nagoya. And Nagoya is a little bit west of Tokyo.
That had to be some sight because from what I remember, all those ships coming in and the airplanes that flew over when they signed that peace treaty, that had to be some kind of an event.
Oh, it was. I didn't see it, but I was there close to it, but I was in the bay, Tokyo Bay. But they were, like I said, they want to get as many Americans there as possible so they could occupy Japan when they signed the papers.
Yeah. Did you party when the war ended?
Yeah.
Yeah? Did you party?
It was kind of a weird feeling, but the Japanese were very friendly. In fact, I went to one Japanese tailor to get my uniform altered because we had all summer uniforms and it was getting towards winter. Mm-hmm. It was getting cold in Japan. So I had him alter my uniform. And he was from Buffalo, New York.
Really? Wow. Wow. So the war ends now. How many years were you in the military? How many years were you?
2 years, 6 months, and 20 days.
Who's counting, right?
That was it. I was not a military person.
Yeah. Well, but you just sure did
But,
it.
but
You
anyway,
sure did your job, though.
Oh yeah, but I was in Japan until January of '46. We left Japan in the middle of January, and I went to Wakayama, which is near Nagoya, and went home. It took me 8 days. We followed the Japanese current to San Francisco. So it took us only 8 days to go home. It took us 30 days to get there.
Well, that's all right, because you were ready to go home anyway, right?
I was separated on February the 1st, 1946.
Well, I thank you
And
for...
then I went to work for General Dynamics.
I was going to say, I thank you for your service, sir. And from what I understand, talking to your son-in-law, you had quite the experience working, too, with Disney and all these. Tell us a little bit about your career after the military.
Well, I went to work for General Dynamics, and I traveled to 42 countries and spent 5 years in China, Japan, Korea, was the 38th parallel in Korea, which separates North Korea and South Korea. And we sold them 3 squadrons of F-16s. And I was good friends with the general of the fighter command, General Lee. He and I were good friends. And then we sold three squadrons of F-16s to the Malaysian combined. And then I went to Egypt, and we sold them some freighters to haul after Naser left, and I forget the other premier of Egypt, but we sold them some dry bulk carriers, 12,000-ton ships. We had a shipyard, and Taki Veliotis was a good friend of mine, and he ran our Marine Division. We had shipyards at Quincy, Massachusetts, and of course nuclear subs at Groton, Connecticut.
Groton, yeah. I'm from Connecticut.
So Taki was a Greek submarine captain during World War II, but he and I were good friends. We used to travel to Europe together.
Boy, you had a great life there. Oh man, I tell you.
Yeah.
I'm
And,
jealous. Seeing all those countries, I'm jealous.
I can almost name all of them too. I went to South America, Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Colombia. And
What country stuck out the most? What country stood
I
out
thought
the
Chile
most?
was a beautiful country.
Chile?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mountains and the plains and the seashore. Valparaiso was on the coast. But I thought Chile was a beautiful country. And
So you were selling,
the French Riviera
oh,
was
yeah.
selling weapon systems.
Yeah, yeah. So
General
that-
Dynamics built fighter aircraft, built the B-36 bomber, built the F-111 swept wing fighter, built the P-36, F-36, I'm sorry, and the nuclear sub, Atlas missile.
Wow.
I took the Chinese through the Fort Worth plant, which is a mile-long assembly plant. There's a bucket of bolts at one end, and at the other end of the assembly line was a P-30 F-36 with avitronics and everything. But the assembly line was a mile long.
I'll tell you, sir, I've had a lot of guys and ladies, veterans on my show, but I don't know anybody who's seen as much as you have.
Yeah.
You are one amazing man, but I got to tell you something. I talked to your son-in-law, and somewhere along the line, they're talking about Disney, and you were working with Disney and stuff too? What did you do?
you know, well, most by accident. I don't remember exactly the details, but they were using the same consultant we were. That's how we got together. This guy was a New Yorker, and Disney used Disney as a consultant for the 1939 World's Fair. And he introduced us to Disney, and Disney liked us, so we became a consultant. And we built for Disneyland out in California, in Anaheim. Both of them are in Orange County, by the way.
Uh-huh.
The one in Florida is in Orange County, the one in California.
I guess he liked Orange County.
Yeah. So, but we built submarines for them, for rides.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in those in Disney, yeah.
But we didn't do that in Florida. But in Florida, we built all the communications equipment for them, the telephone equipment and everything for the park. But the park was all swamp, you know.
Yeah.
And they built a levee around it and pumped all the water out and built the park.
Wow. I'll tell you, you have seen a lot. You have done a lot. From talking to your daughter over there, you retired at 75 years old. You retired.
Yeah, they wanted me to still work.
I don't blame them, because you have so much knowledge and you've done so many things and you had so many connections. Yeah, I'd want you to keep working for me too.
That was a real problem in the beginning. When I first went into the service, they wanted me to go, because of my high IQ, they wanted me to be in the ASTP. That stood for the Army Specialized Training Corps. They were going to take 100,000 enlistees and send them back to college for two things: to increase the technical knowledge of the service, and also to keep the colleges open. Because when they went to war, they took all the males out of the colleges.
It was real short.
The colleges nearly folded up. But it was like the Navy's V-12 program. The V-12 program for the Navy was the same thing. They were trying to increase the technical skills of the enlistees.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there was a big argument, and I won. I don't want to do that. And guess what? The next year, they took them all out of the program and sent them to the infantry in France. That's a
good move on your part.
So I escaped that one.
Yeah. So if there's a favorite memory that you would share about your time in the service, what would it be? Would it be being there watching the surrender? Any particular flight you went on, or some group you were with? What do you remember that stands out?
Well, of course, there was so much.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
It's hard to say which was, outstanding. But I guess Morotai, the experience on Morotai, because we were bombed every night, and the night fighters were going to be up there trying to find them. But our tents were full of holes from the bomb fragments.
Yeah.
So I guess
you didn't keep the mosquitoes out.
That's
Then,
when I guess that's where we got in the war, or kangaroos too.
Yeah. Well, sir, I thank you for your service. I think what you've done for our country. You are an amazing man, and I really enjoyed this interview.
Yeah.
I really did. But I think we're running out of time.
Okay.
And once again, I really want to thank you for coming, and it's a pleasure to meet you. So we're going to look at this camera. So all our veterans out there, active military and their families, we salute you for all you do. Till next time.